In the warm, deeply vibrant turquoise heart of the expansive Caribbean Sea, there lies an isolated nation intricately forged in the primordial fires of the earth. It is a profound land characterized by dramatic geology, where the very tectonic plates have collided to thrust towering peaks into the clouds, and an even more dramatic, pulse-quickening history. This is a place where the foundation of the earth was physically born out of violent, raw volcanic force, leaving behind a legacy of dark, mineral-rich soil and steep, rugged topography. Its freedom, a beacon in human history, was painstakingly won in the literal crucible of a world-changing revolution. This is a land defined not by the fleeting moments of modern convenience, but by a profound, vibrant spiritual energy and a deep, quiet endurance that stretches back across centuries. This is Haiti. Observed from the quiet vantage point of the sky, it is a land of staggering, breathtaking visual contrasts. The island is dominated by colossal chains of mountains that rise sharply and suddenly from the meandering coastline. Their dense, emerald-green slopes plunge directly downward into an impossibly deep, cerulean blue sea. The sheer verticality of the terrain creates a natural fortress, isolating communities in hidden valleys and along narrow ridges. The physical quality of the natural light here is different from anywhere else on the planet. It is sharp, relentless, and intense, acting as a celestial chisel that carves the physical world into brilliant, hyper-saturated color and impossibly deep, ink-black shadow. The atmosphere itself, thick with humidity and the scent of salt spray, seems to continuously vibrate with a complex, underlying energy. It is a dense acoustic blend of distant, sacred drumming rolling over the hills, the sharp, melodic calls of roaming street vendors echoing down narrow alleys, and the staccato rhythms of a resilient language born directly from the necessity of defiance. But to stand completely still, to pause and listen closer to the whispering wind, is to hear the undeniable echo of a drum beat that fundamentally changed the trajectory of the modern world. It is to feel the steady, rhythmic pulse of a complex history that is absolutely not relegated to the past, but is fiercely present in every single daily interaction, in the calloused hands of the elders, and in the direct gaze of the youth. This is an objective observation of a nation that refuses to be defined merely by its well-documented struggles. Instead, it is defined by a people possessing an unshakable, almost geological spirit. They maintain a profound, unbroken connection to their ancestors, a deep-rooted reverence for their challenging land, and a powerful, resilient cultural framework they have systematically built over generations. This is the unvarnished documentation of the quiet, enduring strength found within the precise mechanics of daily life in Haiti. The Haitian day does not begin with the artificial blare of an electronic alarm clock. It begins early, long before the full, punishing heat of the tropical sun has a chance to take firm hold of the landscape. In this transitional twilight, the very first acoustic markers of the morning are not the mechanical grind of urban traffic, but the primal sounds of life itself asserting its presence. It starts with the sharp, piercing crowing of roosters, a staggered, overlapping acoustic signal that echoes from one dusty yard to the next, travelling up the steep hillsides in a wave of organic sound. This is closely followed by the gentle, rhythmic, and highly deliberate sweeping of stiff bristle brooms against hardened concrete and packed dirt floors. It is a slow, methodical sound that signifies the clearing of the old day and the preparation for the new. From the shadows of the outdoor kitchens, the steady, metronomic chop, chop, chop of root vegetables being meticulously diced by a neighbour emerges. The heavy steel blades meet thick wooden blocks, creating a localized percussion that signals the beginning of the day's physical labour. In the densely populated urban centres, private life organically spills outward from the confined interiors of modest homes directly into the shared public spaces of the narrow streets. The physical boundaries blur. The immediate neighbourhood functionally operates as an expansive extension of the family home. It is an environment of constant, fluid, and deeply interconnected human interaction. The morning routines here are not rushed. They are executed as a sequence of quiet, deliberate rituals. The absolute necessity of hydration dictates the first movements. Heavy plastic buckets are manually carried, often balanced with precise, practiced posture, from a central communal tap or a deep local well back to the individual dwellings. The physical weight of the water is a daily, tangible reminder of the effort required simply to exist. Following the water, the cooking fires must be established. Small metal charcoal stoves, black with soot and years of use, are carefully and strategically lit. The process is precise, requiring the right arrangement of charcoal pieces to catch the initial spark. As the embers glow bright orange in the dim morning light, the rich, dark, and deeply invigorating aroma of strong, sweet Haitian coffee begins to physically drift through the humid air. This dark liquid, a product of the mountain slopes, is often consumed slowly alongside a thick piece of fresh, crusty bread procured from a local neighborhood bakery, providing the essential caloric foundation for the grueling physical tasks ahead. Simultaneously, the preparation of the next generation unfolds with a level of care that borders on the sacred. Children emerge from their homes dressed in crisp, immaculate, brightly coloured school uniforms. In an environment where resources are fiercely limited, these pristine uniforms are a potent, highly visible symbol of immense family pride and an unyielding, collective hope for the future. They are very often the direct result of significant, silent, financial sacrifice by the parents. The children make their way through the already bustling, uneven dirt lanes. Their leather shoes, despite the dust of the roads, are meticulously polished to a high shine. Their canvas book bags are held tightly against their sides. Their deliberate march to the small cinder-block schoolhouses is a daily testament to the community's profound dedication to education as the primary tool for navigating the complexities of their world. Beyond the quiet, methodical preparations of the early morning domestic sphere, the physical epicenter of daily existence rapidly shifts to the local market, or maché. This space is universally recognized as the vibrant, pulsating heart of the Haitian community, operating not just as a center of commerce, but as a critical social nexus. Entering the market is to cross a threshold into an absolute, overwhelming sensory explosion of deeply saturated color, complex, overlapping sound, and potent, earthy scent. The air here is thick, carrying the sharp, acidic tang of citrus, the heavy, sweet perfume of overripe tropical fruit, and the unmistakable dry dust kicked up by hundreds of continuously moving feet on the unpaved earth. At the absolute center of this highly organized chaos are the machans, the formidable market women who unquestionably form the resilient, unyielding backbone of the nation's informal economy. These women, often seated on low, handmade wooden stools or directly on spread-out burlap sacks, arrange their raw agricultural produce with a level of practiced, almost architectural artistry. Before them sit perfect, mathematically precise pyramids of bright, fiercely red tomatoes, their skins pulled tight and gleaming under the harsh, unfiltered angles of the climbing sun. Beside these delicate structures lie massive, uneven mountains of thick, green plantains, their rough, fibrous skins still carrying the dark, mineral-rich soil of the steep mountain farms where they were harvested. In wide, shallow woven baskets, loose piles of deeply fragrant medicinal herbs release their volatile oils into the heavy air, sitting in stark visual contrast to the nearby mounds of fiery, blistering Scotch bonnet peppers, glowing in warning shades of bright yellow, sharp orange, and deep, dangerous crimson. The acoustic environment of the market is completely unique, devoid of electronic amplification. Instead, the calls of the maché function as a highly complex, organic form of music. These vocalizations are a familiar and absolutely essential component of the daily, rhythmic soundscape. Each woman advertises her specific goods using a unique, carrying, melodic cadence, a sharp, rising and falling pitch designed to cut clearly through the dense, low-frequency hum of the surrounding crowd. It is a practiced, resonant projection that echoes down the narrow aisles of makeshift stalls. Within this space, the simple act of commerce is profoundly social. The gentle, highly structured art of haggling is not viewed as a hostile confrontation, but rather as an expected, necessary form of reciprocal conversation. It is a fluid, dynamic dance of negotiation, involving theatrical sighs, animated hand gestures, and rapid-fire verbal exchanges that ultimately serve to reinforce long-standing, vital relationships between the vendors and their daily customers. The exchange of worn paper currency is just one part of the transaction. This is where critical local news is rapidly exchanged, where nuanced community gossip is shared in hushed tones, and where the collective emotional pulse of the entire neighborhood can be accurately measured and felt by anyone paying close attention. Because so much of daily life is fundamentally conducted out in the open air, the underlying community ties are continuously woven and reinforced through these constant, unavoidable daily encounters. Responsibilities that in other cultures might be strictly isolated within individual households are fluidly shared among neighbors. There is an organic, unspoken system of collective childcare, with neighbors keeping a watchful, protective eye on each other's children as they navigate the chaotic streets, and multiple families often pooling their severely limited physical and financial resources to ensure mutual survival. In many areas, both rural and urban, the deeply traditional Lakay system powerfully persists. The Lakay is a physical and social compound where large extended families live together in a loose, circular collection of small, utilitarian houses built around a central, shared dirt courtyard. Very often this physical space is anchored and deeply shaded by a massive, ancient Mapou tree. The Mapou, with its gargantuan, heavily buttressed roots and sprawling, dense canopy, is considered profoundly sacred in the Vodu tradition, believed to be a physical conduit for the spirits. The Lakay is the ultimate space of collective living. Beneath the cool, heavy shade of the Mapou, large communal meals are slow cooked together over open wood fires, the smoke drifting upwards through the leaves. It is here, in the fading evening light, that complex, multi-generational stories are verbally passed down, and the crushing, daily burdens, as well as the sudden, bright joys of life are distributed equally among the group. This core principle of collective endurance is perhaps most physically embodied in the agricultural tradition of the Konbit, when a significant, physically overwhelming task needs to be accomplished, such as the rapid harvesting of a steep, rocky sugarcane field before the rains or the heavy labour of repairing a neighbour's storm-damaged roof, community members intentionally gather to execute the work as a unified, synchronized force. The punishing physical labour is not done in silence. It is actively fueled and regulated by deep, rhythmic drumming and collective call and response song. The heavy, repetitive thud of hoes hitting the hard earth or the sharp, synchronized swing of steel machetes is transformed into a massive, collective rhythmic performance deeply rooted in West African agricultural traditions. The intense, muscular exertion is always, without exception, repaid at the end of the day with a large, deeply nourishing communal meal, serving to physically reinforce the unbreakable bonds of mutual obligation, debt, and localized support. In this remarkably close-knit, interdependent world, the very concept of anonymity is entirely foreign. There is a deep, unspoken foundational understanding that individual survival and overall well-being are, and have always been, a strictly collective endeavor. This intricate social fabric is intrinsically tied to a deeply complex sense of identity. The modern Haitian identity is a rich, tightly woven tapestry constructed from the enduring threads of deep African heritage, the lingering, complex architecture of French colonial history, and a fierce, globally unprecedented revolutionary spirit. The primary, unifying language of the population is Haitian Creole, or Creole Haitien. This is a highly dynamic language born directly out of the brutal necessity of the plantation system and the fierce ingenuity of survival. It is a language that carries the absolute, unvarnished soul of the nation, encoded deeply within its specific idioms and its vast catalogue of proverbs. While formal French technically remains the language of official government administration, written law, and formal, structured education, Creole is the undeniable language of the private home, the bustling market, and the emotional heart. It is a language exceptionally rich with vivid physical imagery and hard-won intergenerational wisdom, perfectly capturing the uniquely Haitian worldview. This is expressed in widely used Stoic phrases like Daemon, Genmon, literally, behind the mountains, there are more mountains. This is not a statement of despair, but a deeply poignant, realistic acknowledgement that every massive challenge physically overcome will almost certainly reveal another, equally daunting obstacle on the horizon requiring a steady, unbroken pace. Or the quiet, observant proverb, piti piti, zozo fe nich li, little by little, the bird builds its nest, a powerful, daily testament to the fundamental necessity of extreme patience and the slow, agonizing persistence required to build a life in an environment that guarantees nothing. The deeply layered nature of daily existence extends seamlessly into the profound, deeply complex spiritual life of the nation. The vast majority of Haitians formally identify as Catholic. The imposing physical architecture of the church serves as a central, immovable pillar of community life in both bustling cities and remote, isolated villages. The heavy, metallic tolling of massive iron church bells physically marks the strict, regimented passage of the day, their low frequencies rolling across the deep valleys and crowded streets. Yet, intimately interwoven with this formal European religious structure is the profound, incredibly ancient, and deeply misunderstood spiritual tradition of Vodu. For the people who live this reality daily, there is absolutely no internal contradiction here. Vodu is emphatically not a theatrical spectacle created for the gaze of outsiders. It is a deeply held, highly structured system of fundamental belief. It acts as an unbreakable metaphysical connection to ancestral African roots, functioning as a comprehensive psychological framework for understanding the often chaotic, unpredictable physical world and one's specific, highly vulnerable place within it. In the daily, lived practice of Vodu, this religious syncretism is visually and spiritually profound. For example, the powerful, fluid spirit of the sea, Agwe, is directly and seamlessly associated by the practitioners with the Catholic Saint Ulrich. The powerful, highly revered female spirit of love, luxury and sorrow, Izili Frida, is intricately and deeply linked with the somber Catholic iconography of Our Lady of Sorrows. To witness a traditional Vodu ceremony is to observe a powerful, dynamic, and physically exhausting expression of absolute community cohesion. In the dim, flickering amber light of burning oil lamps or low, smoky wood fires, intricate, mathematically precise ceremonial drawings known as veve are meticulously created directly on the hard-packed, dusty earth floor. The practitioner uses a slow, deliberate, highly controlled trickle of white cornmeal, wheat flour, or crushed eggshells, letting the fine powder fall rhythmically from their fingertips to permanently summon the specific, latent energies of the spirits into the physical space. Simultaneously, the intensely physical, deeply resonant rhythms of the sacred drums, heavy wooden cylinders pulled impossibly tight, with cured animal skins and struck with heavily calloused hands, act as a direct, acoustic, and almost violent form of communication. The distinct, complex polyrhythms literally vibrate in the chest cavities of the attendees, actively calling specific elwa, or spirits, to physically join the gathering. At the absolute, pulsating center of this swirling, intoxicating energy, the ungan, the male priest, or the manbo, the female priestess, acts as a highly trained spiritual facilitator, a traditional herbal healer, and a vital, unquestioned community leader. Sweating profusely in the heavy tropical heat, they guide the intensely focused participants through a grueling, deeply immersive spiritual journey that is explicitly designed to offer localized psychological healing, profound mental clarity, and an unshakable, grounding sense of collective belonging against the incredibly harsh, often brutal realities of the outside world. This profound, unapologetic cultural duality is a direct, physical reflection of Haiti's astonishing, bloody, and entirely unique history. There is an immense, fierce, and entirely justified pride in existing as the world's very first independent Black Republic, a sovereign nation violently and successfully born from the absolute brutality of the only successful large-scale slave rebellion in recorded human history. This unparalleled legacy of absolute defiance is physically, heavily, and overwhelmingly symbolized by the magnificent, gravity-defying mountaintop fortress of the Citadelle La Ferrière. This colossal, brooding stone citadel, constructed directly into the jagged peaks, with the literal blood, sweat, and broken bones of newly freed men hauling massive, rough-hewn stone blocks up precipitous, deadly mountain slopes, was built to aggressively defend that newfound, incredibly fragile freedom against any returning, heavily armed colonial power, its heavy iron cannons, forever pointing silently toward the vast blue sea, remain a potent, enduring, and highly visible source of national strength and fierce, unyielding identity. The epic, Blood-soaked stories of visionary, tactical, revolutionary heroes like Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines are emphatically not treated as dusty, distant, historical facts confined to the pages of ignored textbooks. They function actively as living, breathing, foundational myths. These powerful narratives are actively, aggressively passed down through continuous, unbroken oral generations, acting as the raw, combustible fuel for the vibrant street art, the pulsating, defiant music, and the passionate, animated storytelling that are so deeply, inextricably integral to everyday Haitian life. This revolutionary history is boldly and unapologetically painted in vivid, hyper-saturated colours on the crumbling, bullet-scarred concrete walls of the dense cities. It is sung with full-throated, sweating intensity in the daily, rhythmic work songs, and it is carried heavily, proudly, in the collective, unyielding memory of the people. It is a history that constantly and aggressively informs the harsh present moment, acting as a relentless, daily psychological reminder of a hard-won legacy of absolute defiance and an inherent, historically proven capacity for extraordinary, monumental achievement against entirely impossible, statistically doomed odds. The daily mechanics of the modern Haitian economy tell a parallel, equally intense story of extreme, forced resourcefulness and quiet, grinding perseverance. For the vast, overwhelming majority of the population, physical survival is absolutely not guaranteed by a formal, air-conditioned office job or a predictable, legally binding bi-weekly paycheck. It must be physically created from nothing, day after grueling day, through immense physical effort and sharp, desperate, highly calculated ingenuity. Traditional, small-scale agriculture remains the absolute, foundational cornerstone of physical survival for millions, though it is a harsh, incredibly unforgiving existence. On the steep, severely deforested and heavily eroded mountain slopes where the bedrock often physically breaks through the thin topsoil, as well as in the few remaining fiercely contested fertile plains, farmers painstakingly cultivate vital cash crops and daily sustenance like dense, bitter coffee, sweet, heavy mangoes, and thick, incredibly fibrous sugarcane. Their physical, daily connection to the land is not merely a transaction of modern economics, it is a deep, ancestral, and profoundly spiritual bond. They work small, highly fragmented family plots, known locally as jaden. They perform this agonizing labor, often relying entirely on simple, centuries-old hand tools, heavy, constantly sharpened steel machetes and broad-bladed, heavy-handled hoes, swinging them rhythmically, hour after hour, under the punishing, completely unfiltered radiation of the tropical sun. Their ultimate success, meaning food on the table, or their devastating failure, meaning immediate, physical starvation, is completely and terrifyingly dependent on the increasingly erratic, entirely unpredictable global patterns of rainfall. The daily, physical, and highly visible challenges they face are immense and entirely unrelenting. Severe, widespread soil erosion that literally washes the nutrient-rich topsoil down the steep mountainsides in dark, muddy rivers during heavy storms, a total, systemic lack of modern mechanical irrigation infrastructure, and the wildly fluctuating, often highly exploitative, global market prices for their meager harvest. Yet, despite these crushing realities, the back-breaking, silent work continues, season after difficult season, operating as a quiet, stoic, and highly visible testament to a deep-seated, unbreakable physical connection to the harsh, demanding earth that barely sustains them. Along the jagged, extensive, and often dangerous coastline, highly resilient fishing communities completely depend on the unpredictable, often violent bounty of the deep sea. Long before the very first weak light of dawn even begins to break the dark horizon, when the heavy ocean air is still piercingly cold and thick with the combined, pungent smell of raw salt, drying seaweed and burning diesel fuel, hardened, muscular fishermen set out into the dark, rolling waves. They navigate the treacherous waters in brightly painted, narrow, and often dangerously overloaded wooden boats known locally as Vodu, many of which are still painstakingly carved directly from large, single tree trunks. They physically battle the strong, unseen, and shifting ocean currents using completely traditional heavy nylon nets and long, weighted hand lines. They return many exhausting hours later, their clothes soaked with salt water and sweat, bringing their hard-won, glistening catch to be immediately, loudly, and aggressively sold at the chaotic, flies-swarming local fish market. The slow, incredibly humid and thick afternoons are invariably spent back on the hot, blindingly white sandy beach, which functions as a vital, open-air communal workspace. Here, sitting directly under the blistering, oppressive sun, they painstakingly, methodically mend the countless tears in their thin nylon nets with small plastic needles, repair the cracked, salt-bleached wooden hulls of their battered boats with smoking, hot black tar, and share quiet, highly localized, and deeply nuanced stories over the constant, rhythmic, and hypnotic roar of the crashing Caribbean surf. Much of the daily commerce that sustains the absolute foundation of the nation takes place entirely within the fluid, unregulated bounds of the informal economy. The street vendors, known universally as the maché, are a constant, vital, and overwhelmingly physical presence in every urban centre. They sit close to the broken concrete curbs, selling absolutely everything from fresh, bruised tropical fruit and steaming hot meals served from heavy aluminum pots to small, brightly coloured scratch cards for mobile phone credits. These women act as small-scale, highly resilient independent entrepreneurs. They are the actual beating engines of an incredibly complex economic system that runs almost entirely on unspoken interpersonal trust, long-standing neighborhood loyalties, and highly localized face-to-face relationships. Their sharp business acumen has been ruthlessly honed by decades of lived experience in an environment where the formal banking sector is entirely inaccessible to the working class. Many of these women travel immense, physically exhausting distances from remote rural agricultural areas. They wake hours before dawn, often walking for miles along unlit, dangerous dirt roads, while carrying incredibly heavy, balanced woven baskets of raw produce directly on their heads. They endure the choking exhaust fumes and the punishing daytime heat to bring their essential goods to the crowded city centres. Their quiet, unyielding resilience serves as a powerful, stabilizing force in a national economy that is otherwise highly volatile and deeply vulnerable to external global shocks. This deep-seated resourcefulness extends naturally into the realm of physical creation, particularly within the country's renowned artisan communities. In highly creative geographic hubs such as the colourful, decaying colonial port town of Jacmel in the south, or the intense, metallic and constantly ringing village of Croix-des-Bouquets just outside the capital, artisans produce visually arresting, world-renowned art out of absolute necessity. In Croix-des-Bouquets, the constant, deafening and highly rhythmic clatter of heavy steel hammers striking cold iron fills the dusty air from sunrise to sunset. Here, Highly skilled artisans physically transform discarded, heavy industrial materials into complex objects of extraordinary, intricate beauty. Massive rusted steel oil drums, originally used to import foreign fuel, are systematically burned out to remove toxic residue. They are then violently flattened into large, raw metal sheets using heavy sledgehammers. With nothing more than a simple, sharpened iron chisel and a heavy mallet, the artists painstakingly carve incredibly intricate, narrative sculptures directly into the unforgiving metal. The resulting pieces depict fluid, interlocking representations of powerful Vodu spirits, chaotic, layered market scenes, and the dense, twisting vines of the natural tropical world. In a country burdened with severely limited formal employment opportunities, these hyper-local, small-scale artisan businesses and relentless individual physical efforts are the only things that keep vast networks of extended families fed and sheltered. Added to this grinding local effort is the absolutely crucial, invisible financial support flowing continuously from the massive Haitian diaspora. Remittances, the small, regular sums of hard currency sent home via wire transfer from relatives living and working multiple minimum wage jobs in Miami, New York, or Montreal, act as a vital, highly literal economic lifeline. This continuous inward flow of capital is emphatically not just a sterile economic statistic listed on a World Bank report. It is the exact physical money that pays for a young child's required school fees, ensuring they are not turned away at the wooden gates. It is the specific currency used to buy imported, life-saving hypertension medicine for a frail, elderly parent. It provides the critical funds required to purchase corrugated tin and iron nails to urgently repair a leaking roof immediately after the devastating passage of a seasonal hurricane. It represents a highly tangible, emotionally heavy link of unwavering duty and love, permanently connecting fractured families across thousands of miles of cold ocean. The fundamental Haitian food culture is a direct, honest, and highly aromatic reflection of this exact same history of deep resilience and profound resourcefulness. It is a cuisine designed to be deeply flavorful, highly calorically dense, and absolutely made to be shared among large, extended family groups. The architectural foundation of almost every single daily meal, built entirely around the specific staple crops that the challenged land and sea can reliably provide, is the iconic diriak pabua. This heavy, steaming dish of long-grain rice and dark red or black beans is a simple, deeply nourishing and fundamentally satisfying carbohydrate combination that fuels the immense physical labor of the population. Other universally beloved labor-intensive dishes include griot, which consists of large, succulent, heavily marbled pieces of pork shoulder. The meat is aggressively marinated for days in a highly acidic bath of sour orange juice, coarse sea salt, and complex spices before being slow-boiled until tender and finally deep-fried in hot oil until the exterior is dark, blistered, and fiercely deeply crunchy. This rich meat is almost always served alongside banan peds, which are thick, savoury slices of starchy green plantains that have been smashed flat with a wooden press and double-fried until golden and rigid. On highly specific, culturally vital special occasions, most notably on the dawn of New Year's Day, every single Haitian family, regardless of their economic standing, meticulously prepares soup jumu. This is a rich, complex, intensely aromatic, and vividly orange pumpkin soup loaded with root vegetables, tender beef, and thick pasta. The cooking and communal eating of this specific soup is far more than a simple culinary ritual. It is a highly powerful, profoundly, deeply emotional, and historically charged act of national remembrance and fierce celebration. During the brutal era of French slavery, the enslaved Africans were strictly, legally forbidden from consuming the luxurious pumpkin soup they were forced to cook for their colonial masters. Therefore, the consumption of this hot, fragrant liquid on the exact anniversary of their hard-won independence is a literal, physical taste of the very freedom their ancestors bled and died for in the damp mountain forests. The daily preparation of food is, in itself, an incredibly time-consuming, highly sensory ritual. It is a multi-step process that invariably begins with an early morning trip to the chaotic local market to carefully select the freshest possible organic produce. This is followed by a slow, highly deliberate, and deeply careful cooking process, almost entirely executed outdoors over a smoking, erratic charcoal stove that requires constant fanning and adjustment to maintain the correct heat. The complex underlying flavor profiles of the cuisine are systematically built upon a classic, highly pungent, wet blended base known as epis. This essential green paste is a finely crushed, highly aromatic blend of sharp garlic, sweet onion, earthy thyme, flat leaf parsley, and blistering aggressive Scotch bonnet peppers. Epis is laboriously prepared in large stone mortars and pestles, the heavy rhythmic grinding echoing through the courtyards, and is subsequently used as the foundational marinade for almost all meats, rice, and thick stews. The heavy, rich meals are very frequently accompanied by a small glass jar of pickles. This is a highly volatile, brightly coloured spicy condiment made of finely shredded raw cabbage, julienned carrots, sharp onions, and a massive quantity of crushed Scotch bonnet peppers, all submerged in raw, harsh white vinegar. The highly acidic, fiercely spicy kick of the pickles is specifically designed to cut directly through the heavy, fatty richness of the fried meats, creating a perfectly balanced, explosive bite. The intense, daily practice of home cooking forms the absolute emotional and physical heart of the cultural tradition. A shared meal, eaten sitting close together in the heavy evening heat, is the undisputed, grounding centerpiece of Haitian family life. It is the designated time to gather after a punishing day, to talk over the low hum of the neighborhood, and to physically and emotionally reinforce the deep, complex bonds that tie the family unit together against external hardships. Beyond the vibrant, exhaust-choked and highly chaotic energy of the densely packed urban centers, the broader natural landscape of Haiti possesses a profoundly quiet, deeply powerful, and often overlooked visual beauty. The geographic identity of the country is completely defined by its massive, folding, and overlapping mountain ranges. These towering geological formations create dramatic, sweeping, high-altitude vistas and simultaneously serve to geographically isolate and protect small, remote, rural villages. In these deeply hidden, high-altitude valleys, the frenetic, modern timeline of the city simply ceases to exist, and human life moves at a significantly slower, much more deeply traditional and highly rhythmic pace. In these lush highlands, the thin air is noticeably cooler, carrying the scent of damp pine needles and rich, dark soil rather than diesel exhaust and hot asphalt. The daily connection of the inhabitants to the ancient, immutable cycles of planting seeds in the wet season and harvesting crops in the dry season is absolute and entirely unbroken. Physical life up here is lived in a state of tight, necessary, and incredibly close harmony with the subtle, shifting rhythms of the earth, where every subtle change in wind direction or cloud formation is read and interpreted with expert precision. The rugged, uneven landscape is secretly dotted with hidden, breathtaking natural wonders that contrast sharply with the poverty of the cities. There are places like the stunning series of tiered, hidden waterfalls at Bassin Bleu, deeply concealed within a dense, humid, and echoing canyon. Here, deep, perfectly still pools of impossibly bright, neon blue mineral water offer a shockingly cold, deeply refreshing respite from the suffocating, relentless tropical heat of the lowlands. Further up, near the clouds, lie the vast, silent, and severely threatened native pine forests of Park Maché, a highly critical, biologically diverse ecosystem that serves as the last refuge for countless endemic species of rare birds and wild orchids. At the absolute opposite extreme of the mountains, the ragged, convoluted coastline stretches out for over 1,000 miles. This highly varied maritime boundary offers everything from bustling, chaotic, and loud fishing hubs smelling of raw catch and boat tar, to utterly serene, untouched, and blindingly white sandy beaches on isolated, electricity-free satellite islands like Île Vache. The fundamental rhythm of life in these specific coastal communities is completely entirely dictated by the harsh, gravitational pull of the tides and the wildly unpredictable, often violent nature of the Caribbean weather systems. The physical reality of modern existence in Haiti is a constant, highly creative, and often exhausting daily negotiation between deeply entrenched ancient traditions and the sudden, loud, and unavoidable intrusion of modern global technologies. The most iconic, highly visible manifestation of this daily, chaotic motion is the tap-tap. These are not merely functional public transit vehicles, they are heavily modified, exhaust-belching, highly mobile works of street art. Every single square inch of their welded metallic surface is painstakingly and brilliantly covered in vibrant, hand-painted murals. These intricate designs depict a complex, overlapping mixture of solemn, religious iconography, fierce, historical political figures, and layered, highly specific cultural themes. Beyond their visual impact, the tap-taps operate as hyper-compressed, deeply intimate rolling social hubs. Inside the incredibly crowded, sweltering, and unair-conditioned cabins, complete strangers are forced shoulder to shoulder, instantly becoming temporary close proximity neighbors sharing a bumpy, incredibly loud, and chaotic journey. The passengers physically signal their desired stop, not with a standardized electronic buzzer, but by sharply and aggressively tapping a heavy metal coin or a thick ring directly onto the hollow metallic roof of the vehicle. This creates a sharp, unmistakable acoustic clatter that cuts through the engine noise and literally gives the transport its name. Weaving dangerously and rapidly through the thick, stagnant and exhaust-choked traffic around these larger vehicles are the motos. These ubiquitous, roaring, small-engine motorcycles serve as highly nimble, aggressive, and essential urban taxis. The hardened moto driver is an absolute master of the unforgiving urban landscape, physically navigating the severely congested, heavily potholed, and very often completely unpaved, flooded urban arteries with a fearless, highly calculated precision. While macro-level state infrastructure remains a profound, daily, and crushing challenge, with severely limited, often completely non-existent access to reliable municipal electricity or safe, clean, piped water, microtechnology has deeply and permanently infiltrated the basic societal fabric. In the complete absence of a reliable, continuous power grid, the heavy, vibrating, mechanical roar of private diesel generators becomes the absolute, defining acoustic baseline of modern urban life. It is the heavy, expensive sound of forced self-reliance. Yet, amidst this profound structural struggle, the bright, artificial glow of inexpensive smartphones illuminates calloused hands. These small, plastic devices are absolutely vital lifelines. They are used extensively for essential mobile banking, driving the crucial informal economy, and they connect isolated, rural farmers instantly and visually with the vast, global diaspora that keeps the nation financially afloat. For the massive, rapidly growing population of Haitian youth, daily life is a highly complex, often emotionally painful blend of immense, crushing familial responsibility and fierce, burning global aspiration. Formal, structured education is universally held in the absolute highest regard, viewed fundamentally as the single, viable escape route from grinding, generational poverty. The physical classroom, even when severely under-resourced with peeling paint, broken wooden desks, and severely lacking in basic textbooks, is fiercely protected by the community as a sacred space of intense, focused ambition. These young people live with a powerful, constant internal tension. They possess a deep, undeniable and fierce love for their vibrant ancestral culture, yet this is paired with a desperate, highly pragmatic dream of migrating outward to foreign lands. This intense desire to leave is rarely a desire to abandon their roots, but rather a strategic, calculated hope to acquire vital modern skills and hard currency that can eventually be physically brought back to sustain their struggling families. As the harsh, punishing white light of the tropical day begins to finally fracture and fade, the frantic, survivalist energy of the nation organically and noticeably softens. The daily transition from day to night is a profound, physical shift in the national rhythm. The deep, heavy, cooling shadows begin to lengthen across the cracked pavement and the dusty, rural courtyards. People physically emerge from the suffocating heat of their homes to gather closely on their narrow front porches and low concrete steps. The sharp, violent clatter of heavy plastic dominoes being aggressively slammed down onto hollow wooden tables becomes the familiar, deeply comforting acoustic signature of the evening. It is a time for loud, passionate debate, sharp humor, and physical decompression. From hidden, low-lit neighborhood bars and open, unglassed windows, the slow, sweet, highly melodic, and rhythmic strains of Konbit, the nation's beloved, deeply intoxicating dance music, drift slowly out into the humid, cooling night air. In the remote, mountainous rural highlands, this transition is absolute and overwhelming as total darkness falls, completely unpolluted by artificial city lights. A profound, heavy silence descends, broken only by the deafening mechanical chirping of a million unseen crickets and the low, guttural croaking of tree frogs. To accurately document this beautiful, highly complex nation is to acknowledge its profound, terrifying physical vulnerabilities. Positioned directly in the volatile, unpredictable heart of the Caribbean tectonic plate, it is exceptionally vulnerable to massive, devastating natural disasters. The physical, geological scars of catastrophic earthquakes and the repeated, violent, and highly destructive impact of Category 5 hurricanes are permanently etched into both the broken physical landscape and the deep, enduring national psyche. Access to basic life-saving services like modern healthcare remains a desperate, daily physical struggle. The steep landscape itself bears the deep, brown marks of severe environmental degradation, particularly the massive deforestation that radically exacerbates the deadly risk of sudden flash flooding and massive burying landslides. However, to focus exclusively on this undeniable, highly visible hardship is to completely misunderstand the fundamental, beating reality of the place. True resilience here is emphatically not a passive, defeated endurance. It is a highly active, fiercely creative, and deeply communal force. It is the immediate, highly organized physical mobilization of local neighbors clearing heavy, storm-felled trees with simple hand axes and ropes long before any formal government help ever arrives. So why, under such immense, unyielding and terrifying daily pressure, do the people stubbornly and proudly remain? The ultimate answer lies in the profound, emotionally heavy, and deeply untranslatable Creole concept of Lakay. Lakay simply translates to home, but it carries a massive metaphysical weight. It is the exact physical geographic coordinate where you are implicitly, perfectly understood without having to speak a single word. It is the deep, unbreakable, almost magnetic connection to a specific, challenging piece of hard earth that physically holds the bones, the blood, and the revolutionary history of your direct ancestors. The true, enduring, quiet strength of Haiti is not, and has never been, measured by external global metrics of political stability or gross domestic product. It is measured in the steady, dependable, and highly resilient physical rhythm of the everyday. It is found in the immense pride of an immaculate white school uniform navigating a muddy road, in the shared laughter over a steaming bowl of rice, and in the deep, powerful current of pure, unyielding life that absolutely refuses to be extinguished. If you find yourself profoundly drawn to these raw, unvarnished realities, to witness exactly how people survive, adapt, and find deep, undeniable meaning in the world's most isolated, complex, and physically challenging environments, join us on this ongoing journey. Subscribe to follow our footsteps as we continue to quietly document the unyielding strength and the profound dignity of those who live fiercely